Power outages happen. Are you prepared?
A loss of power is becoming not only increasingly possible, it's also becoming increasingly expected. In fact, some of our overseas viewers are now currently experiencing planned power outages forced by the power company for up to 4 hours at a time. We have been fielding a lot of questions about portable power stations, what they will do, what they won't do, how to pick the best portable power station for what you need. And hopefully this video will answer a lot of those questions for you.
If this is the first time with us, I'm Larry.
And I'm Hope.
And we're from Under the Median, where every week we talk about practical frugality.
Now, portable power stations are, we think, one of the most practical ways to deal with the need for backup power. In this video, we're going to use 3 examples. They are all from the same company, and they're all 3 different sizes. We want to thank Oupes for gifting us with these 3 portable power stations for us to try out. Now, Oupes has not paid us for producing this video, nor have they told us what we can and cannot say about their products. Our opinions are our own, and so what we share in this video about these products is absolutely based on our own experience having used them. To be honest, we used Oupes as our example because we just happen to have 3 different sizes of portable power stations, all produced by the same company. But we do want to thank Oupes for their generosity, and they did send a special 10% off coupon code specifically for Under the Median viewers. You're going to find a link to these products from Oupes in the description of the video, and you'll also find that coupon code to get a 10% off of your order. Let's take a look at 4 different characteristics that you really need to know about these units before you even get started picking which unit is right for you.
The first characteristic you want to look for is the output wattage. That's how many watts each of these can put out at one time. And then you want to look at the peak delivery, how much peak power or surge power that these can put out. That's very important when you're running an AC motor, because a motor will have surge power involved that can be 2 to 3 times the amount of the rated wattage of that motor.
The second thing you need to be aware of is the battery capacity.
The battery capacity is the amount of watt hours that these batteries are rated, and they're all different. This has the least amount of battery capacity, and this has the most amount. Battery capacity in watt hours will tell you how long these will run a sustained amount of power draw. For instance, this one is about 992 watt hours. That means it could run 992 watts per hour. So if you want to divide that by 100, then you can get the idea of about how long it will run a 100-watt item. So it would run a 100-watt item for about 9.9 hours.
The third thing you really want to know is the charge time on AC. In other words, how long does it take to recharge one of these units?
You know, one of the advantages of a gas generator is to recharge it. You just fill it up and then it's charged. These take some time, and each of these comes with an AC charger. These come with about a 200-watt charger. This one comes with 2 200-watt chargers since it has so much more capacity. It takes a little bit more power to charge it. We really feel, as far as being properly prepped, so to speak, that it's good to have some backup power to be able to run things in your home that you're going to need when the power goes out. The fourth thing that you should take into consideration is the amount of charge time on solar. Each of these came with solar panels, and each will charge at a different rate outside in the sun. This one, for instance, came with 2 100-watt panels. This one uses 4 100-watt panels, and this one uses 4 240-watt panels. Now, I have one of the 100-watt panels out before us here. They're kind of big, but they do a great job. They collect a lot of energy from the sun, and they allow a certain amount of charging time, which, once again, I'll go over for each unit. This big unit came with 4 of these 240 watt panels, and they're huge. They weigh about 18 pounds a piece. So these take a little bit of time to set up, about 10 minutes. They actually fold, they unfold, and there's kickstands on them, and I'll show you some pictures of what they look like when they're set up. So let's talk now a little bit about the batteries that these use. All three of these use a lithium phosphate battery, and that's a little different than a lithium ion battery. It's a little newer formula. They are also very long lasting, and they'll take a little more cycles. They'll take about 2,500 cycles. That's how many times they can be charged. And at the end of 2,500 cycles, they're still going to be rated at 80% of their capacity, so you don't throw them out. So they'll last for years and years. It's a really good battery formula.
Now we're going to move in a little bit into the specs of each unit. This large one is the new kid on the block. So we've never ever shared about this unit before. It's only been out for about 2 months, so we'll share a little bit more about what this unit will and will not do. As we move through the pros, the cons, what they'll run, what they won't run, then we're also going to share a little bit about our different perspectives of using these units and what I really have enjoyed about some of these units.
Well, let's take the smallest of the units. This is the 1200 watt unit. It was actually their second unit that the company came out with. And of course, its output wattage is 1200 watts, and it uses a pure sine wave inverter. So what is a pure sine wave inverter? Well, that's what converts the direct current from the battery to AC current that you have coming out of your outlets in your home. And it's exactly the same kind of current that your utility company supplies. It's a perfectly nice, smooth sine wave that very sensitive equipment like computers, medical equipment, anything that's very sensitive, motors, particularly like a pure sine wave, all three of these have that pure sine wave inverter in them. This one has a 992 watt capacity battery. So that means that it will run about 992 watts per hour, as I explained. And the nice thing about all three of these units, on the display, it will tell you how many hours and minutes an item will run at the current draw for the battery and how it is charged. So if the battery is only charged to 50%, an item that would have run 4 hours will only run 2 hours. But it'll show you that. It gives you a countdown. So it's really very nice to use.
Now, what I really like about the smaller units is that this is relatively lightweight. It's about 22 pounds. I can easily carry this from room to room in the house.
The charge time on this with the two 100 watt solar panels is 8 hours. So it takes 8 hours, and that's if it's all the way down. I don't run these all the way down. I'll run them down to about 50% and then take them out and charge them, and that way they'll charge up in a lot less time.
We're going to move along, tell you some of the specs of this middle unit, the 1800 watt, and then just remind you to stick with us, because when we get through describing like the basics of all of the units, we're going to tell you what they will run and what they won't run.
So this is the 1800 watt unit. It's the one that's right between the 1200 and the 2400 watt unit. It will supply, as it says, 1800 watts. It has a surge power of 4,000 watts. And that is a lot of surge. This one, by the way, I couldn't find the rating for the surge on it. I didn't see that in the owner's manual or any of the information on their internet site. This one has a battery capacity of 1,488 watt hours. It has a charge time on AC of 7 hours and a charge time on solar as 4 hours. And that's if you have 2 of the 240 watt big panels. Now, if you put 4 of the 100 watt panels in, it takes between maybe 5 and 6 hours. And let me just mention that with solar, you have to have real good, solid sun. It has to be unobstructed. You don't want trees or any kind of shade in the way. And if you have a cloudy day, that's going to affect the time amounts for charging. For the most part, we can get all these charged up in one morning and afternoon. outside. I'll set them out in the morning and go to work, and hope we'll turn the panels and keep them turned toward the sun, because you want to kind of track the sun in order to get the most out of the charging time. The weight of this unit is 33 pounds, so it's not bad to carry. I can carry it around. I really like the 1800 watt unit. They each have an LED light built in. When you press the button the first time, it's a lesser amount of light. It's about 50% less. This is about 50% more. That's about 1,000 lumens, so it's pretty bright. It'll light up a room. And then the next one is a flashing mode, kind of an SOS. So really like that feature. It's a decent feature. Not all of the portable power stations have a built-in light like this one. This is more of an area light. And some come with no lights at all.
All right, time to move to the biggest unit.
This one could be called the Beast. In fact, Alaska Prepper calls this the Beast. It is a big unit, and it supplies a lot of power. I'm really impressed with their 2400 watt unit, and I'll explain why. But let's go over some of the characteristics first. Of course, it's a 2400 watt inverter, puts out a lot of power. It has a 2,232 watt hour battery. That is a lot of capacity. So it will run items a long time. It runs anything that you plug into this one. This will run it twice as long. And once again, it'll give you a readout, and it'll let you know how long it's running an item. And I'll demonstrate that on all three of them in just a little bit here. The charge time on AC, because it has two 200 watt chargers, it only takes 6.5 hours, and that's less time than these other two. The charge time with solar is phenomenal, and this is where it really excels. This one has special plugs on the side. It has two barrel plugs like these have. These have the barrel plugs for plugging in the panels, but this has what they call Anderson plugs, and they allow for more wattage input. So when you hook up all four of the 240 watt panels, you're going to get, I get about 750 watts. You can get up to about 950 watts. And once again, that all depends on your sun, the amount of solar that you have coming in, the time of day, and the time of year even. So this will actually charge up in your backyard or wherever you can charge it. It'll charge up in about 4 hours. It's always the first one to finish out.
Now, the big disadvantage for me for this unit is the fact that it's about 46 pounds. This, once again, is about 23, 24 pounds. This is 33 pounds, and then we've got 46 pounds. Either one of these units I can handle. I can carry them around. This one I can easily carry from one room to the other. This one, I can carry it from one room to the other, and then I really want to set it down. And this one, I literally would not try to pick it up and carry it myself. So that is the disadvantage. The advantage that I've found of this is once Larry has it in place and has it set up, I can run some kitchen appliances. It runs for a really long time for what we need it to do without needing to be recharged. So that is really, really nice. The time has come for us to tell you what they will run and what they will not run. We're going to do a direct comparison, the 1200, the 1800, and the 2400. Larry, go. What do we want to run?
Okay, so I like to have coffee. It's okay, coffee.
Yes.
Coffee is very important
Yes.
to us. That's pretty clear by
In
now.
an emergency, you can tell where we're at. In an emergency, the first thing we want to know is, can we make coffee?
Right. So our coffee maker, it runs, I'm trying to think what it runs. I think it runs about 759 watts. So the littlest one will actually run our coffee maker. Now, I think it'll only run maybe two pots out of that at one time. This one will run it maybe 4 pots, and this will run it for several pots, a bunch more. So a coffee pot, all 3 of them will run our coffee maker.
Okay, although a coffee pot may not be a necessity in an emergency. And in an emergency situation, you may need to have a shop vac. Let's say that you're getting some water leakage into the house and you need to get that water sopped up. A shop vac is really handy to be able to run. So Larry, will all 3 units run the shop vac.
Yeah, in fact, I have an early video that we did on this one. And by the way, on that video, we can put a link in it. When they first put this unit out, they called it an 1100 watt unit, and they've upgraded it to 1200 watts. So on our video, it's called 1100. On their website, it's called a 1200. It's the same power station. All three will run the shop vac. This will just run it about twice as long as this one will.
All right, the next item on the list is a vacuum cleaner. Let's say you need to clean up some messes, some debris, things like that. Will it run the vacuum cleaner? Let's start down here. I'll do my thumbs up. Okay, this one.
That one will run the vacuum cleaner.
Okay, second one.
That one runs the big, we're talking about the big vacuum cleaner, right? It runs it. The little one does not.
Sorry, guys.
That will not run it.
All right, microwave oven. And once again, we're willing to admit that a microwave oven might be a luxury in an emergency situation. Maybe you don't really need your microwave oven, but if your coffee gets cold, you might need your microwave oven.
Well, let's first talk about how much the microwave uses. And while we're talking about, let's just briefly mention the kilowatt meter. So if you put our microwave through the kilowatt meter, it's going to show about 1500 plus watts. So that's a lot of wattage.
Yeah, we have an older, larger microwave. If you have a smaller one, it's not going to be, and we've talked about this before. The only way you're going to know how many watts units use or appliances in your house is to use a kilowatt meter. We'll leave a link to this in the description of the video. In fact, we just did a whole video on how to figure out how much backup power that you need in an emergency situation. We go into depth about how to use that kilowatt meter. Okay, so the question is, the microwave.
Yeah, this one will run the microwave with no problem.
Okay.
This one will run the microwave. It won't run it as long or for as many times, but it will run it. This one, that will not run the microwave.
Crock pot, something else you might be needing. Will the 2400 unit run the crock pot?
Yeah,
Ding.
no
Yes.
problem. And this will run it, and so will this. A crock pot doesn't use that much power. And we got some video of Hope cooking on the crock pot. We had it outside, and at the time, we were running solar into it. So solar going into this, I think it was going in at 500 plus watts, and she was drawing out about 150, 170. This was actually charging while running the crock pot. So if you can bring solar energy into them at the same time, get that pass-through charging going, and as long as you're not exceeding the power draw, you're bringing in more than you're taking out, you could actually be charging up the batteries.
Right, and as he mentioned, that is called pass-through power. And that is where you're charging while you're also taking energy out of the unit. And so will all three of them do pass-through?
Yeah, all of the Oupes units. They do have a smaller one than this. They have a little 600 watt unit. That was their first unit. And I believe that'll do pass-through charging as well. The nice thing about pass-through charging, when I come home from work on my e-bike, I'll take it out, put it in the backyard, and plug it into this one with the solar panels. It takes about 4 hours to charge up my e-bike from about a 19-mile ride down to work and back. Then I'll bring this unit in, hook it up into the kitchen, and we'll run the microwave, the coffee pot, and some lights over our kitchen counter. We'll run those lights off of this for about 2 or 3 days after that.
Now, so he mentioned the e-bike, which actually is something you might need in emergency, because remember, if there's no power, if the power outage is widespread, then those gas pumps at your local gas station, they need energy to pump the gas. Right. Now, the question is, will all three of these units charge your e-bike?
Oh, yeah, all three will. I use the small one to charge the e-bike. This will get about 2 charges, this one about 3, and I can get about 4 charges out of this one.
Okay, a couple more things you may need in case of emergency to get power to. One is your sump pump. Now, a sump pump has usually a 1/2 horsepower motor on it.
About that, yeah.
So that motor is going to have a lot of start-up energy, which means even if the sump pump is running at several hundred watts of power, then to actually get it started, it's going to have that power surge that it needs to get the unit started. So the question is, which ones of these units will run our sump pump?
Well, when I did the first video on the 1200 watt unit, I was amazed to find out
were
that
shocked.
it would run the sump pump. And that is our most critical piece of equipment in a storm emergency. We had an emergency where we lost power during a winter snow ice storm. The ground was saturated. It had been warm, the ground was thawed, and it was just waterlogged, and our sump pump was running 24/7.
Yep.
We lost power, and I had to quickly, at that time I didn't have any of these, I had to run the gas generator around the backyard and get it started, get it plugged in, and I got it plugged in just in time before that sump pump overloaded and overfilled into the room. So the nice thing about these, I could get this to the sump pump a lot faster and get it started and get that emptied out in the case of a power loss. So all three of them will run it. Sump pump, ours uses about 330 watts.
Two more things you need an emergency, and you all have asked us this question a lot. Tell me what will run my refrigerator. Tell me what will run my freezer. So let's start down here again at the 2400 watt unit.
Well, this one will run the refrigerator. In fact, I did a test on this one.
Yep.
I charged it up to 100%, and I plugged it into our 2010 refrigerator. We've had the refrigerator for 12 years, so it's an older model. It's not a particularly efficient model. This ran it without doing any more charging, no additional charging. This ran it for 26 hours straight, and it only went down to 18%. So it ran it for that long. In a power outage, you could unplug the refrigerator at intervals and get a little more time out of it than that. And then if you have solar panels out in the backyard and you got some wiring coming into your house, you could do a pass-through thing. And I've seen people run their refrigerator endlessly as long as they had sunny days. They could run it on a really small portable power station like this one. This one will run our refrigerator, and so will this one. They will also, all three, run our big freezer out in the garage. The freezer uses about 70 watts. And
It is fairly new. We bought it a couple of years ago, so it's an energy efficient one.
And it's very efficient. And the other thing that these will all run is our garage door opener. And, that might seem like a minor thing, but if your cars are in the garage and, maybe Hope can't pull that door back, it takes a little oomph to manually pull it when we've lost power. She could just plug one of these power stations in, hit the button, and the door would open for her and she could get her car out. So it's certainly very convenient to have something like this on hand. And the other thing, of course, you've got lighting, you've got power to run your computers. These have USB ports. This one has, I think it has 4 USB ports and 2 USB-C ports, as well as a 12-volt adapter outlet and 2 little small barrel outputs for 12 volts. So you've got more than just AC on all these. And I use all 3 of these units to charge up our phones, to charge up our little battery power banks, because I run LED lights in other parts of the room, and I'll charge those banks up and plug those into our LED lights. We'll frankly run the whole basement just off of the solar powered stations, and they're just very convenient for that.
Okay, and clearly the other question people ask us, our internet router, that doesn't use much energy at all, guys. Any one of these 3 would run your internet router. So those are the main items that we came up with just based on our own experience of power outages that you may need to run using one of these units. But the big question that comes up now is, how long will each of these units run those things?
Yeah, so I'm going to do a little demonstration here. I'm going to hook up an electric hot plate to each one, and each one will show how much wattage it's drawing and for how long it will run them. Okay, the reading on the 2400 watt unit is 902 watts. This unit says it'll run it for 2 hours.
Okay, we're at the 1800 watt unit. Got the hot plate there in front. Larry's got it plugged in.
And it says it'll run it for 2 hours.
Alrighty, we're going to move along to the 1200.
Oh, now it just went down to 1 hour. It just went down to
interesting.
1 hour.
Okay, so give it a little bit of time. If you're going to do this at home, give it 60 seconds or so to sort of calibrate, and it's going to tell you how long it's going to run it. All right, we're at the 1200 watt unit. It's all plugged in. What's it say, Larry?
Okay, it is running at about 870 watts, and it says it'll run it for 60 minutes. So it might, now it just went down to 50. It just went down to 50.
Yeah, that makes good sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so that gives you an idea of how the exact same appliance. Now, First of all, we deliberately picked something that has a heating element in it because that has a little bit of wattage to it. So we wanted to show you that how much wattage each of the units will handle. We'll handle something with a fairly substantial wattage, but you will find that each of the units descending in order from the 2400 to the 1800, the 1200 is going to run that same appliance, but run it for different lengths of time. Our best advice is to get the unit and use it. Familiarize yourself with it so you know exactly what to do when the emergency happens.
That'll help you know exactly what it'll run, how long it'll run, how long you need to leave it on charge for solar. And by the way, most of the time we charge these using the solar panels.
We do.
I don't use the AC cords hardly at all. I think I've only used them when I first got them, just to make sure that they were working okay. I don't use the AC cord. We charge them outside in the sun, and that's free power. So here's another thing that they'll do. As long as you have a power station, use it. We've had this unit since July, and we've used it every single day that we've had it. And that way we know the ins and outs of the unit. So when you have that emergency, the power goes out, you're not wondering, oh, is it charged up all the way? What will it do? What can I put on it? You will know in advance exactly how it works. It gives you peace of mind.
Now, we have charged these units pretty much exclusively with the solar panels. We love using the solar panels. It's free energy, guys. But the advantage of having the ability to plug them into the wall is if you know that a winter storm is coming, if you know that a possible thunderstorm is coming, bad weather is headed your direction, or you know there's a planned power outage coming, then what you want to do is go ahead, plug them into the wall, and get them up to as close as you can to 100%. That's the advantage of being able to have that cord to plug it into the wall. We've just explained to you how to figure out which one of the portable power units will meet your needs in case of an emergency. But you need to know what your emergency backup power need is in your home. We just did a video on that and walked you step by step how to determine what that number is. So that video is right over there. And if you haven't watched it yet, you might find it super helpful.